Alfred William Bennett, the 24th of June 1833 to the 23rd of January 1902, was a British botanist and publisher. He was best known for his work on the flora of the Swiss Alps, cryptogams, and the Polygalaceae Milkwort plant family, as well as his years in the publishing industry. Early life. Alfred William Bennett was son of Quakers William Bennett, 1804–1873, a successful tea dealer, amateur botanist, and sometime emu breeder, and Elizabeth Trusted Bennett, 1798–1891, an author of religious books for the Society of Friends. William Bennett also corresponded with biologist Charles Darwin, though he did not accept the latter's theories concerning evolutionary biology. Alfred Bennett, a lifelong believer in evolution unlike his father, would later establish his own correspondence with the noted theorist. William Bennett took great interest in the education of his children, whom he schooled at home. The elder Bennett was influenced in his ideas of education by the writings of the Swiss philosopher and educational reformer Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi, and in the winter of 1841–1842, he took his family to Switzerland so that his children could study at the Pestalozzian school at Appenzell. It was during this trip that Alfred Bennett learned the German language, a skill that would help him in his future writings on alpine plant life. William Bennett also created an environment conducive to the study of the natural sciences for his children. Between 1851 and 1854, he took Alfred and his brother Edward Trusted Bennett, 1831–1908, on several walking tours of Wales and the western regions of England, where the boys studied British flora and took extensive notes on their observations. Their father also introduced them to noted entomologists and family friends Edward Newman, Henry Doubleday, and Edward Doubleday. Education and publishing. Bennett attended University College London, where he received a BA with honours in chemistry and botany in 1853, an MA in biology in 1855, and a BSc in biology in 1868. In 1858 he married Catherine Richardson, 1835–1892, and turned to publishing as a career, taking over the business at 5 Bishopsgate Without, formerly run by Charles Gilpin and later by William and Frederick G. Cash. While he only spent the next 10 years as a publisher, he worked off and on in various aspects of the industry for the rest of his life. He was the editor and publisher of The Friend, an independent weekly publication for members of the Society of Friends. He was one of the first publishers to use photographic illustrations, and the first sub-editor of the journal Nature. Additionally, he went on to be the editor of the Journal of the Royal Microscopical Society, the main publication of the Royal Microscopical Society, an institution in which he was a fellow and also served 3 terms as vice president. Botanical career. Between 1871 and 1873, Bennett wrote a series of papers on fertilization in plants that brought him to the attention of Charles Darwin, who encouraged his efforts. In particular, Bennett clarified many of the processes in flower fertilization and established core terminology for its description, as well as illuminating how flower structure could facilitate cross-fertilization. Bennett also began to write on Polygalaceae during this time, and he contributed synopses of species within that family for the 1874 publication Flora Brasiliensis and J. D. Hooker's 1872 volume Flora of British India. During a walking tour of Switzerland in 1875, Bennett's interest in the natural world of the Swiss Alps was also rekindled after finding 200 species of flowering plants he had not seen before in the field. This led to his translation of J. Swiss Alpenpflanzen nach der Natur gemaltes Alpine Plants, 1879–84, and work on Austrian scientist K. W. von Dalatorre's Tourist's Guide to the Flora of the Austrian Alps, 1882–1886, as well as Bennett's own definitive work The Flora of the Alps, 1897. He also worked extensively on cryptogams, especially freshwater algae, during the last 2 decades as a botanist. In 1889, he published a Handbook of Cryptogamic Botany with his co-author George Robert Milne Murray. His obituary in the Journal of the Royal Microscopical Society calls it his most valuable original work. Bennett also spent many years as lecturer in botany at St. Thomas's Hospital and Bedford College, Higher Education of Women. After his retirement from publishing in 1868, he and his wife opened their house in Park Village East, Regent's Park, for a limited number of ladies coming up to London to study. From this time forward he took a keen interest in the education of women. Upon him personally fell a large share of the effort. On 15 May 1878, University of London Convocation received an address signed by 1960 women, asking that the university throw open all its degrees to women. A. W. Bennett was one of the speakers, named in the Times report of the ensuing debate. After nearly 10 years, the campaign was successful in authorizing the awarding of degrees to women by the University of London. Death. Bennett died suddenly from a heart attack in Oxford Circus while riding home to Regent's Park atop an omnibus. A lifelong Quaker, he is buried in a Quaker burial ground in Isleworth next to his wife Catherine. The couple was childless. Selected writings. Review of the genus Hydrolia, 1870. On the medicinal products of the Indian Cimmerubii and Burseraceae, 1875. Review of the British species and subspecies of Polygala, 1877. On the structure and the affinities of Caraceae, 1878. Conspectus Polygalarum Europarearum, 1878. Polygalae Americanae Novae Parum Cogniti, 1878. Reproduction of the Zygnomaceae, 1884. Freshwater algae, 1887. A Handbook of Cryptogamic Botany, 1889. The Flora of the Alps, 1897. Bibliography. Works by Alfred William Bennett at Biodiversity Heritage Library. Works by Alfred William Bennett at Wikisource. For an obituary of A. W. Bennett as a Quaker, see Annual Monitor for 1903.